Would you dare to venture into the coldest and darkest forests of northern Canada? In a place where winter never ends and the wind howls like lost souls, hides a creature that few have seen and even fewer have lived to tell the tale. This is not just any story, it's a legend that chills the blood and fills even the bravest with fear. Today, I'll take you to a place where hunger and despair can awaken a monster that feeds on flesh and fear. Get ready to meet the Wendigo, the being that stalks on the coldest night and never rests. Are you ready to discover what happened on that terrifying night? It all began in the small community of Pinesville, a remote town surrounded by an immense sea of trees and snow. It was one of those brutal winters where the snow piled up like an endless blanket, and the cold was so intense that every breath felt like a stab of ice. A group of local hunters, led by Thomas, a veteran hardened by years and storms, decided to venture into the forest in search of food. The approaching storm was one of the most intense on record in decades, but the hunters had no choice. As they advanced, the blizzard whipped their faces and visibility was reduced to almost nothing. The trees, tall and shadowy, stood like silent giants, and soon the group was forced to seek shelter in an abandoned cabin hidden among the pines. Unknowingly, they had entered the beast's territory. Inside the cabin, the atmosphere was icy and gloomy. Despite lighting a fire, the heat barely managed to combat the cold that penetrated to the bone. The wind whistled through the cracks like a whispered warning. As the night wore on, a disturbing feeling took hold of them. It was as if someone or something was watching them from the darkness. Thomas, always alert, was the first to notice the tracks. Outside, around the cabin, there were huge footprints in the snow. They didn't belong to any animal he knew. They were twisted, deformed, and evoked the image of something that shouldn't exist. Nevertheless, he convinced the others to spend the night and wait for the storm to subside. But the real nightmare was just beginning. At dawn, the disappearance of one of the hunters triggered panic. The group, dismayed, decided to follow the tracks that led out of the cabin. They ventured deeper into the forest, but the tracks became increasingly erratic, as if the creature that had left them was suffering and distorting with each step. Finally, they found their companion. He was standing next to a tree, frozen in an expression of pure terror. His scars and disfigured face were proof of unimaginable suffering. Thomas, though paralyzed by fear, recognized what everyone dreaded. In a low, trembling voice, he uttered the words that would seal their fate, the Wendigo. They knew they had to leave the area immediately, but the storm had completely disoriented them. The Wendigo, that legendary figure that feeds on human flesh and whose yellow eyes could drive anyone mad, was hunting them. As they tried to make their way back to the cabin, fear gripped them. They felt its gaze from the shadows, its icy presence in every breath. When they finally arrived, the cabin door was open, and what they found inside left them breathless. The body of the hunter they had left behind had been brutally dismembered. In the center of the cabin, a gruesome message, a pile of bloody bones. The Wendigo was sending them a warning. There was no way out. They were trapped. Gathered around the fire, the hunters tried to stay awake, terrified of what might happen if they gave in to sleep. Outside, the creature scratched at the cabin walls, emitted piercing howls, and its eyes gleamed with insatiable hunger. Each night became a battle for survival against the monster and their own sanity. After several days of desperate struggle, the Wendigo made its final move. It broke down the door and launched itself at the hunters with savage fury. Screams of terror filled the air, and blood stained the pristine snow. Thomas, the last one standing, faced the creature in an epic showdown, but he knew he had no chance. The Wendigo knocked him down, and with one last howl, disappeared into the darkness of the forest, satisfied and hungry, ready to claim its next feast. Since then, the legend of the Wendigo has become a grim warning in Pinesville. Every winter, when the snow falls and the wind howls, the story comes alive. The townspeople know that deep in the forest, the Wendigo is still waiting, stalking those who dare to venture too far into its domain. Because on those dark, cold days, the Wendigo is always hungry. and its winter feast never ends. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. See you in the next chapter of terror. Until next time.